The pen trembled in my hand as I stared at the stack of papers before me. My house, my safe haven for the past decade, was about to become nothing more than a signature away from belonging to someone else. The realtor's polite cough snapped me back to reality. I'm Trisha, and I've spent my entire life being the responsible one. When our parents died in a car crash 12 years ago, I was 23, fresh out of college, with two younger siblings to raise. Robin was 19, Louis just 17. Instead of pursuing my dreams in architecture, I took a steady job in accounting and bought this modest three-bedroom house in the suburbs. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Are you sure about this? The realtor's voice was gentle, probably sensing my hesitation. Before I could respond, Robin's manicured hand squeezed my shoulder. Of course she's sure. This is going to change all our lives, right, Trish? I forced a smile, remembering the enthusiastic pitch my siblings had given me last month. A revolutionary wellness center, they'd said. Something about combining holistic healing with modern fitness techniques. They had spreadsheets, projections, and even a slick presentation. All they needed was capital. Specifically, the equity from my house. The market's hot right now, Louis chimed in, adjusting his designer glasses. You'll make twice what you paid for it, easy, and once the wellness center takes off. He let the sentence hang there, full of promise. I signed the papers, one by one, each signature feeling heavier than the last. The realtor gathered them efficiently, like she was collecting fallen leaves, not the pieces of my security. Congratulations! Robin squealed, pulling me into a tight hug. I can't believe you're doing this for us. You're literally the best big sister ever. Louis was already on his phone, probably messaging his girlfriend about the good news. We should celebrate. Dinner at Marino's? That's a bit expensive, I started to say, but Robin cut me off. Come on, Trish, we're about to be business owners. Let's live a little. At Marino's, surrounded by ambient lighting and the clink of expensive wine glasses, I watched my siblings order everything from Wagyu beef to truffle pasta. Robin was gesturing animatedly about color schemes for the wellness center, while Louis nodded, occasionally adding comments about equipment costs. When can we start looking at locations? I asked, pushing my barely touched salmon around the plate. Oh, we've got that covered, Robin waved dismissively. We've been scouting places for weeks. There's this perfect spot in the downtown district. Shouldn't I see it first? I mean, it's my investment too. Louis nearly choked on his wine. Trust us, sis. We've got this. You focus on moving your stuff to that cute apartment we found you. The cute apartment was a one-bedroom unit above a noisy bar, but it was all I could afford after liquidating my assets for their venture. The rental agreement sat in my purse, signed this morning right before the house closing. To new beginnings! Robin raised her glass, her perfect teeth gleaming in the dim light. And to Trisha, the best big sister anyone could ask for. As we clinked glasses, a memory flashed through my mind. Robin at 19, crying over college tuition she couldn't afford. Louis at 17, needing braces but not having insurance. I'd figured it out then, worked extra hours, made it happen. Maybe this was their turn to step up, to prove they'd grown into responsible adults. When do we meet with the contractor? I asked, trying to sound casual. Don't worry about all that boring stuff, Robin said, signaling the waiter for another bottle of wine. We'll handle everything. You've done enough by providing the startup capital. Something in her tone made my stomach clench, but I pushed the feeling aside. These were my siblings, the same ones I'd packed lunches for, helped with homework, consoled through breakups. They wouldn't betray my trust, would they? As we left the restaurant, Robin and Louis shared an Uber, heading downtown to check on something for the business. I drove home alone, the word feeling strange now that home meant a tiny apartment instead of my house. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a long moment, listening to the bass thump from the bar below my new residence. My phone buzzed, a text from Robin. Thanks again, sis. You won't regret this. I clicked off the phone and grabbed my overnight bag from the trunk. The first box of my belongings would arrive tomorrow. As I climbed the stairs to my apartment, each step felt like I was walking deeper into a decision I might live to regret. But they were family, and family wouldn't lie to you, right? 3 weeks into living above the bar, and I still hadn't seen the wellness center location. My calls to Robin and Lewis went straight to voicemail more often than not, and their responses were always the same. So busy with permits? Or meeting contractors all day? I decided to surprise them with lunch, picking up their favorites from that deli they loved. The downtown address they'd mentioned was supposedly their temporary office space, while the main location was being renovated. The security guard at the building looked confused when I mentioned their names. "Never heard of them," he said, checking his tablet. "No wellness center listed as a tenant either." "There must be some mistake," I insisted, pulling up Robin's latest text about another busy day at the office. "Suite 405? That's been empty for months, ma'am." My stomach dropped. The sandwiches suddenly felt heavy in my hands. Back in my car, I called my cousin Hector. He'd always been the level-headed one in the family. "Something's not right," I said when he answered. "They're not at the office they claim to have." "Want me to swing by? I'm only 10 minutes away." We met in the parking lot, and Hector's presence immediately calmed my racing thoughts. He had that effect on people. "Let's think this through," he said, unwrapping one of the abandoned sandwiches. "Have you seen any actual paperwork? Business plans? Contracts?" They showed me projections and presentations, but I paused, realizing something. Nothing official, no legal documents. Hector's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then showed me the screen. It was Robin's Instagram story, a poolside photo tagged at some luxury resort in Miami. "Didn't she tell you she was meeting contractors all week?" My hands started shaking. "Maybe it's an old photo?" "Posted an hour ago, Trisha." I scrolled through her feed, something I'd been too busy to do lately. There were shopping bags from designer stores, champagne brunches, a new car I'd never seen before. "Call Lewis," Hector suggested. Lewis answered on the fourth ring, music thumping in the background. "Trish, what's up?" "Where are you?" "At the office, obviously. These permit applications are killing me." A female voice giggled nearby, followed by the distinct sound of glasses clinking. "Really? Sounds like quite the office party." "Oh, just a quick celebration. One of our permits came through." "Which permit?" "Look, I gotta go. Important call coming in. Love you." The line went dead. Hector watched my face crumple. "I heard everything," he said quietly. "Want to drive by Lewis's apartment?" 20 minutes later, we pulled up outside his building. A brand new Mercedes sat in his assigned spot. Definitely not the beat-up Civic he'd been driving last month. "When did he get that?" I whispered. As if on cue, Lewis emerged from the building, wearing clothes I'd never seen before. Designer clothes. He was helping a woman into the Mercedes, both of them laughing. I started to get out of the car, but Hector grabbed my arm. "Wait, look." Robin's distinctive red hair appeared in the building's entrance. She was supposed to be in Miami. "What the hell is going on?" I muttered. We watched as my siblings drove off in the Mercedes, leaving me with a growing pit in my stomach. Back at my apartment, I pulled out all the documents they'd shown me about the wellness center. The projections looked professional at first glance, but now I noticed they were just templates, filled with generic numbers. The presentation was mostly stock photos and buzzwords. "I'm such an idiot," I said, slumping onto my couch. Hector sat beside me. "You're not an idiot. You're someone who trusted their family. They took everything, Hector. My house, my savings. Then we'll find out exactly what they did with it." He pulled out his phone. "I know someone who might be able to help. She's a private investigator, really good at following money trails." "I can't afford a PI. Catherine owes me a favor. Let me make a call." As Hector stepped outside to make his call, I heard voices arguing in the hallway. I recognized them immediately. "We need to be more careful," Lewis was saying. "Trisha's not stupid." "Relax," Robin replied. "She trusts us completely. Besides, what's she gonna do? The money's already spent." They passed by my door, unaware I was listening. Their laughter echoed down the hallway. mixing with the bass from the bar below. Hector came back inside, phone in hand. Catherine can meet us tomorrow. I nodded, my hands clenching into fists. Good. Because I want to know exactly what they've done with my money. And then, they're going to wish they'd never betrayed me. The bass thumped below, but for the first time, it felt like a heartbeat, pumping anger instead of blood through my veins. Catherine's office was nothing like I expected. Instead of a dim, noir-style detective's lair, it was a modern co-working space with bright windows and plenty of plants. She looked more like a tech executive than a PI, wearing a crisp blazer and typing rapidly on a sleek laptop. So, she said, turning her screen toward me, your siblings received the money from your house sale exactly 23 days ago. Want to guess where it went first? I leaned forward. The business account? Not even close. They split it 3 ways, but not evenly. Robin took 50%, Lewis got 30%, and 20% went into a joint account they opened last month. Hector, sitting beside me, let out a low whistle. That's pretty brazen. Gets better, Catherine continued, clicking through several screens. Robin's been making daily withdrawals at high-end boutiques. Gucci, Prada, you name it. Lewis dropped 30 grand at a luxury car dealership last week. Down payment on that Mercedes you saw. My throat felt tight. What about the joint account? That's their fun money. Restaurants, clubs, hotels. They spent 5 grand last weekend at some rooftop bar downtown. While I'm living above a dive bar, I muttered. Catherine's fingers flew across the keyboard. They're not exactly trying to hide their spending. Look at this. She pulled up Robin's social media accounts, not just Instagram, but several platforms I didn't even know she used. Each one showcased a lifestyle that screamed new money. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, luxury vacations. She posted this 3 hours ago, Catherine said, pointing to a photo of Robin lounging on a yacht. The caption read, Business meetings done right. Jak entrepreneur life os blessed. Can we use any of this legally? I asked. Already on it. I've documented everything, including their verbal agreements about the wellness center. They committed fraud, Trisha. Plain and simple. Hector touched my arm. You could go to the police. Not yet, Catherine interjected. We need more concrete evidence. Text messages, emails, recorded conversations. Anything showing their intent to deceive. I have their original presentation, I offered. The fake business plan. Good start, but we need more. Catherine leaned back in her chair. Here's what I propose. We set up surveillance, track their movements, record their conversations when they're in public spaces. All legal, all admissible in court. How long will that take? Give me a week. They're not exactly subtle. People this careless with money tend to be careless with their words too. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Robin. Hey sis, quick update, permits taking longer than expected. But don't worry, everything's going great. Miss you. I showed Catherine the message. She smirked. Perfect, keep acting normal. In fact, why don't you invite them to dinner next week? What good would that do? Trust me, by then, I'll have enough dirt to make them squirm. Plus, I'll be at the next table, recording everything. The plan started taking shape. Catherine would document their spending and movements. Hector would help me gather any paperwork related to the fake business. And I would play the naive big sister just a little longer. One more thing, Catherine said, pulling out a small device. This is a voice-activated recorder, perfectly legal to use in public spaces. Carry it with you. As if on cue, my phone rang. It was Lewis. Catherine nodded encouragingly as I answered and hit record. Trish, how's my favorite sister? I'm your only sister, Lewis. Listen, Robin and I were thinking, we should do dinner soon, update you on everything. I caught Catherine's eye. She gave me a thumbs up. Actually, I was about to suggest the same thing. Next Friday? Perfect. That new steakhouse downtown? Our treat. Sure, I said, keeping my voice steady. How's the wellness center coming along? Oh, permits and stuff. But it's gonna be amazing. You'll see. After hanging up, Catherine was already typing. That steakhouse has excellent acoustics. I'll get the table next to yours. Standing to leave, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Finally, I was doing something instead of just being a victim. Remember, Catherine called as Hector and I headed out. Act normal. Let them think they're still in control. The best revenge is making them reveal themselves. In the elevator, Hector squeezed my shoulder. You okay? Better than okay. For the first time since selling my house, I feel like I'm taking back control. Just be careful. They're still your siblings. No, I said, watching the floor numbers descend. They stopped being my siblings the moment they decided to steal from me. Now they're just people who need to learn actions have consequences. The elevator dinged, and I stepped out into the sunshine, the recorder secure in my pocket. 1 week. In 1 week, I'd have enough evidence to confront them. And this time, I wouldn't be the only one losing everything. Catherine's evidence arrived in a series of texts throughout the week, each one more infuriating than the last. Photos of Robin trying on designer clothes at boutiques during supposed contractor meetings. Videos of Lewis test-driving sports cars when he claimed to be reviewing permit applications. But nothing prepared me for the Instagram live video she forwarded on Thursday night. You need to watch this now, Catherine's text read. I clicked play. Robin's face filled the screen, slightly drunk and very animated. She was at some rooftop bar, Lewis visible in the background, with his arm around two women. So many of you have been asking about my business journey, Robin slurred to her followers. Here's the secret, babes. Sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it. Lewis appeared behind her, champagne in hand. Tell them about the wellness center. They both burst out laughing. Robin could barely catch her breath. Oh my God! Remember those fake spreadsheets? And Trisha actually believed them. Best investment ever, Lewis chimed in, raising his glass. To my gullible sister! The video cut off. My hands were shaking so hard, I nearly dropped the phone. Another text from Catherine. They went live without realizing I was following them. Deleted it 10 minutes later, but I got the recording. I called Hector immediately. Did you see it? Just watched it. I'm coming over. 20 minutes later, we sat in my tiny apartment, the bass from the bar below punctuating our conversation like an angry heartbeat. I've got more, Catherine said over speakerphone. They're planning to leave the country next month. Found flight searches on their shared cloud account. One-way tickets to Bali. With my money, I said through gritted teeth. First class, naturally. But here's the interesting part. They're liquidating assets. The Mercedes? Listed for sale yesterday. Robin's new designer bags? Most are already on consignment sites. Hector leaned forward. They're running. Not if I can help it, Catherine replied. I've documented everything. The fraud, the Instagram confession, the flight plans. We have enough for the police, but what? But you might want to confront them first. Give them a chance to make it right. I laughed bitterly. You think they'll just hand the money back? No, but confronting them publicly might scare them enough to try. That dinner tomorrow? Perfect opportunity. The plan came together quickly. Catherine would set up surveillance at the steakhouse, capturing everything from multiple angles. Hector would be seated at the bar, ready to intervene if needed, and I would finally stop playing the fool. One more thing, Catherine said. Check your email. I opened the attachment she'd sent. It was a series of text messages between Robin and Lewis from the day they convinced me to sell the house. Robin. She's actually going to do it. Can't believe how easy this was. Lewis. What if she asks to see the business location? Robin. Please. She trusts us completely. By the time she figures it out, we'll be living our best lives somewhere else. Lewis. Kind of feel bad, though. Robin. She's had that house for years. Time for her to learn to live a little less boring. The timestamps matched exactly when I was signing away my home. I'm going to be sick, I muttered. Use it, Catherine advised. Tomorrow at dinner, let them dig their own graves, then bury them with evidence. After hanging up, Hector helped me rehearse what I'd say, how I'd stay calm when confronting them, how I'd present the evidence. What if they run? I asked. Catherine's got people watching their apartments. They're not going anywhere. My phone buzzed. A text from Robin. Can't wait for dinner tomorrow. Got some exciting updates about the wellness center. I showed Hector the message. He shook his head in disbelief. They really think you're that naive. I replied, typing back a cheerful response complete with emojis. But not anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bar's music seemed louder than usual, or maybe it was just the blood pounding in my ears. I scrolled through old family photos, birthdays, holidays, graduations. In every picture, I was the one taking care of them, protecting them, sacrificing for them. My phone lit up with a notification. Robin had posted another Instagram story. She and Lewis at a nightclub throwing back shots. The caption read, Pre-gaming for dinner with Big Sis tomorrow. Sjark family first, blessed. I clicked off my phone and stared at the ceiling. In less than 24 hours, I'd face my siblings across a dinner table and watch their carefully constructed lies crumble. Part of me felt sick about it. A bigger part felt something else. Justice was coming. And it would be served with their favorite wine. The steakhouse hummed with Friday night energy as I arrived early to meet Catherine. She was already there, disguised in a dark wig and business attire, setting up her surveillance equipment at a corner table. Microphones are ready, she whispered, adjusting something under her table. Hector's at the bar. You remember the signal if things get out of hand? I nodded, touching the small recorder in my purse. 2 taps on the water glass. Perfect. And remember, let them talk. The more they say, the more we have. My phone buzzed. Robin. Running 15 minutes late. Traffic is crazy. Order me a martini? They're pre-gaming again, I told Catherine. Saw them on Instagram doing shots an hour ago. Even better. Drunk people talk more. I took my seat at the reserved table, ordered Robin's martini, and waited. The maitre d' kept bringing bread, probably pitying my solo status. At 30 minutes past our reservation time, I heard them before I saw them. Trisha! Robin's voice carried across the restaurant. She wobbled slightly in her stilettos, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Lewis trailed behind her, adjusting his designer watch. Sorry we're late, he said, kissing my cheek. His breath reeked of whiskey. Traffic was insane. Really? Your Instagram stories showed you at the Apex Lounge an hour ago. They exchanged quick glances. Robin recovered first, sliding into her seat. Just one quick drink with potential investors. Speaking of which, wait till you hear our latest updates. The waiter appeared. Robin ordered another martini. Lewis went for a $200 bottle of wine. It's on us, he insisted, waving away my protest. Least we can do for our amazing sister. Amazing sister who gave up her house for this venture? I said carefully. How is that going, by the way? Still having permit issues? Robin launched into an elaborate story about bureaucratic red tape and contractor delays. I let her talk, watching Catherine's table from the corner of my eye. She was recording everything. Funny thing, I interrupted. I drove by the downtown location you mentioned. Building security had never heard of any wellness center. Lewis choked on his wine. Robin's smile flickered. Oh, that, she said, waving dismissively. We actually found a better location, much more upscale. Where? It's still in negotiations. Very hush-hush. You understand. The waiter returned with their drinks. Robin practically lunged for her martini. I understand a lot of things now, I said quietly. Like how you managed to afford that new Gucci bag, Robin. Or your Mercedes, Lewis. Business expenses, Lewis muttered. For meeting clients. What clients? Robin kicked him under the table. I saw it clearly. Trisha, she said, leaning forward. I know it seems like we're just having fun, but everything's going according to plan. Trust us. Like you trusted me to believe those fake spreadsheets? The color drained from both their faces. Oh, what spreadsheets? Robin's voice had lost its confidence. I pulled out my phone and played the Instagram live video. Their drunken laughter filled our corner of the restaurant. Remember those fake spreadsheets? And Trisha actually believed them. That's, that's not what it sounds like, Lewis stammered. Really? How about these texts? I showed them the screenshots Catherine had recovered. Planning to run away to Bali with my money? Robin grabbed her purse. We should discuss this somewhere private. Sit down. My voice was steel. We're just getting started. You don't understand, Lewis pleaded. We had a plan. To steal from me? To leave me living above a bar while you spent my money on designer clothes and luxury cars? Other diners were starting to stare. Good. Lower your voice, Robin hissed. Why? Embarrassed that people might learn what you did? That you stole from your own sister? Lewis stood up. We're leaving. Sit down, I repeated. Unless you want me to call the police right now. Catherine's already documented everything. Who's Catherine? Robin demanded. The private investigator who's been watching you spend my money for the past 3 weeks. They both turned, scanning the restaurant. Catherine raised her wineglass in their direction. You had us investigated? Robin's voice cracked. Did you really think I was that stupid? That I wouldn't figure it out? Lewis slumped in his chair. We can explain. Save it for the police, or we can handle this another way. Robin's mascara was starting to run. What do you want? I pulled out a document Catherine had prepared. Sign this. It's a repayment agreement. You have 48 hours to return every penny, or I press charges. We don't have it all, Lewis whispered. We spent. Then sell everything you bought with my money. Every bag, every car, every piece of jewelry. 48 hours. Robin's hands shook as she reached for the paper. You'd really send your own siblings to jail? I leaned forward, making sure they both saw the cold fury in my eyes. You stopped being my siblings the moment you decided to steal from me. Now sign! The document made its way around the table, their signatures shaky but legible. As I stood to leave, Robin grabbed my arm. Trisha, please. I pulled away. 48 hours. Tick-tock. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Robin and Lewis had been busy overnight, listing everything on various resale sites. Designer clothes, jewelry, watches. Even the Mercedes was on AutoTrader. They're scrambling, Catherine said over coffee in my apartment. Already sold 3 bags and a watch, but they're taking lowball offers. Ah, desperate people make desperate choices, Hector added, scrolling through the listings. Look at this. Robin's selling that Cartier bracelet for half what she paid. My phone buzzed again. A text from Robin. Can we talk? Please? In person? I showed Catherine the message. She nodded. Meet them somewhere public. I'll be nearby. An hour later, I sat in a busy coffee shop, watching Robin and Lewis approach. They looked different, subdued, wearing plain clothes instead of their usual designer outfits. We've raised almost half, Lewis said without preamble, sliding into the seat across from me. But we need more time for the rest. The deadline stands. Robin's eyes were red. We've called everyone we know, trying to get loans, but no one's willing to help. Funny how that works when you're asking for actual business investments, instead of stealing from family. We never meant, Lewis started. Save it. I cut him off. Every time you open your mouth, another lie comes out. A barista called out their orders. Lewis went to get them, leaving me alone with Robin. Remember when I had that car accident in college? She asked quietly. You gave up your spring break to take care of me. Don't. You've always been there for us, Trisha. Always picking up our pieces. And this is how you repaid me? My voice cracked. By stealing my house? Lewis returned with their drinks. We've got someone interested in the Mercedes, offering cash, but it's less than we hoped. Take it, I said. Clock's ticking. What happens after? Robin whispered. If we pay you back, can we fix this? I looked at my siblings, really looked at them. Robin's designer bag was gone, replaced by a canvas tote. Lewis's expensive watch was missing from his wrist. You know what hurts the most? I said. Not the money, not even the lies. It's that you laughed about it, made jokes about how gullible I was, posted about it on social media like it was something to be proud of. They flinched. I saw the video, you know. The one where you're bragging about tricking me, showing off how clever you were, scamming your own sister. We were drunk, Lewis muttered. You were honest, for once. My phone buzzed. Catherine updating me on their sales. More items sold, but still not enough. 36 hours left, I reminded them, standing up. And if you're even $1 short, I'm going to the police. Wait. Robin grabbed my arm. What about family? Doesn't that mean anything? I yanked my arm away. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from it. Outside, Catherine was waiting in her car. They're selling everything, she reported, but they're still about 100 grand short. They'll find it, I said. They're creative when they need to be. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number, a video link. I clicked it. It was Robin, makeup-free, sitting on what looked like her bedroom floor. Hey, followers. I need to be honest about something. I've made some terrible choices. She's doing a confession video? Catherine leaned over to watch. I betrayed someone's trust, someone who's always been there for me, and now I'm selling everything I bought with stolen money to try to make it right. The video continued, Robin breaking down as she detailed her actions, her shame, her regret. The comments were already flooding in. Shock, disappointment, anger. Smart, Catherine mused. She's using her influencer status to sell everything faster, playing the redemption angle. Another notification, Lewis posting on LinkedIn about selling his Mercedes. Correcting past mistakes, he wrote, all reasonable offers considered. They're really doing it, I said, surprised despite myself. Ah, fear is a powerful motivator, Catherine replied. But don't let your guard down. They're still trying to save themselves, not make things right with you. My phone buzzed again. Hector this time. You okay? No, I replied honestly. But I will be. Looking out the window, I watched Robin and Lewis leave the coffee shop, heads down, shoulders slumped. They looked smaller somehow, stripped of their stolen luxury. 36 hours, I reminded myself. Catherine started her car. Want to place bets on whether they make it? No need, I said, watching my siblings disappear around the corner. They'll make it, because for the first time in their lives, they don't have a choice. With 1 hour left until the deadline, I sat in Catherine's office, watching the money trickle into my account. Robin's designer collection had been decimated, Lewis's Mercedes sold at a loss, and their joint accounts drained. They're still short, Catherine announced, checking the latest figures. About 20,000. My phone rang. Robin. I put it on speaker. We're so close, she pleaded. Just give us until tomorrow morning, please. The deadline hasn't changed. We've sold everything. There's nothing left. Catherine slid a tablet across the desk. On it was a photo of Robin's wrist, still adorned with their mother's diamond tennis bracelet, a family heirloom. Not everything, I said. The line went silent. No, Robin whispered. Not Mom's bracelet. Please, Trisha. 55 minutes, I hung up. Hector, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. That's cold. They didn't think twice about taking my house, I reminded him. The house I bought to give them a home after Mom and Dad died. Catherine's computer pinged. Movement on their accounts. They're at a pawn shop. 40 minutes later, the final transfer came through. Catherine verified the total. They did it, she confirmed. Down to the last penny. My phone buzzed with a text from Robin. It's done. Happy now? Should we go? Hector asked. I nodded. Time for the final act. The family restaurant we'd chosen for this last meeting held years of memories. Birthdays, graduations, Sunday dinners. Robin and Lewis were already there, sitting in our usual booth, looking shell-shocked. The money's been verified, I said, sliding in across from them. Every cent accounted for. Robin's wrist was bare. Lewis's designer clothes had been replaced by old jeans and a faded t-shirt. So that's it? Lewis asked. We're done? Almost. I pulled out 2 envelopes. These are copies of everything Catherine gathered. The fraud evidence, the Instagram video, the text messages. I'm keeping the originals. Why? Robin's voice was hollow. Insurance. In case you ever think about trying something like this again. We won't, Lewis said quickly. We've learned our lesson. Have you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're only sorry you got caught. Robin's makeup was streaked with tears. What do you want us to say? We screwed up. We betrayed you. We're horrible people. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to listen. They sat silently as I continued. For 12 years, I put my life on hold to take care of you. When Mom and Dad died, I could have walked away, let the state handle it. But I didn't. I bought that house so we could stay together, worked extra jobs to put you through college. And how did you repay me? By stealing everything I had and laughing about it. We can change, Lewis whispered. Maybe, but not with me in your lives. Their heads snapped up. What do you mean? Robin asked. I mean we're done. After tonight, I don't want to hear from either of you again. No calls, no texts, no social media, nothing. You're cutting us off? Lewis's voice cracked. But we're family. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't laugh about betraying trust. Family doesn't post videos mocking their sister's generosity. Please. Robin reached for my hand. We'll do anything. I pulled away. You already did everything. That's the problem. Standing up, I left the envelopes on the table. One last thing, I said. Mom's bracelet. I called the pawn shop. I'm buying it back tomorrow. Not for you, but because she would have wanted it kept in the family. The real family. Trisha, wait! Lewis stood up. Sit down, I said firmly. This isn't a negotiation. It's a goodbye. Walking out of the restaurant, I heard Robin's sobs behind me. But for the first time, they didn't make me turn back. Didn't make me want to fix everything. Catherine and Hector were waiting in the parking lot. You okay? Hector asked. I looked back at the restaurant window, where my siblings sat crying in our family booth for the last time. No, I said honestly, but I will be. Want company tonight? Catherine offered. I shook my head. I need to do something first. An hour later, I stood in front of my old house. The new owners had painted it blue, planted different flowers. It wasn't my home anymore, but as I turned away, I realized something. I didn't need it to be. Sometimes losing everything means finding yourself, and sometimes saying goodbye to family means finally being free. My phone buzzed one last time, Robin again. I blocked the number without reading the message. Some chapters need to end for new ones to begin. The realtor's smile was genuine as she handed me the keys. Congratulations on your new home, Trisha. Standing in the empty living room of my new house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. It was smaller than my old place, but it was mine. Bought with the recovered money and a determination to start fresh. My phone buzzed. Catherine sending me a link. Thought you might want to see this? It was Robin's latest social media post. Her first in weeks. No designer clothes, no luxury backdrop. Just her, sitting in what looked like a small office, wearing business casual attire. First day at my new job, the caption read. Starting over isn't easy, but it's necessary. To those I've hurt, I'm not asking for forgiveness, just trying to be better. The comments were surprisingly supportive. Proud of you for taking responsibility. Everyone deserves a second chance if they're willing to work for it. Hector arrived with pizza as I was unpacking kitchen boxes. Saw Robin's post, he said, setting down the food. Lewis got a job too, regular sales position at a car dealership. Good for them, I said and meant it. They asked about you again. Hector. I know. Just thought you should know they're really trying to change. The doorbell rang. Catherine, carrying a housewarming plant and a folder. Final report, she said, handing me the folder. Thought you might want it for closure. Inside were screenshots of Robin and Lewis's recent activities. Regular jobs, modest apartments, no more luxury purchases. They were living within their means for the first time in their adult lives. They're doing better, Catherine noted, though I'm sure having their safety net cut off helped motivate that change. Speaking of change, Hector said, pulling something from his jacket. "Remember this?" He held up an old photo, me and my siblings on the day I bought my first house. We were smiling, full of hope and plans for the future. "We should take a new one," Catherine suggested. "New house, new chapter." "Wait," I said, reaching into a box. "There's something else that should be in the photo." I pulled out Mom's tennis bracelet, restored to its former glory after rescuing it from the pawn shop. "Perfect," Hector said, raising his phone. "Smile." The flash went off just as another text came through. An unknown number. "Lewis, I know you blocked us, and I respect that. Just wanted you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not asking for anything. Just needed to say it." As I stared at the message, Catherine touched my arm. "You don't owe them a response." "I know," I said, putting the phone down. "But maybe that's the point. It's not about owing anymore." I picked up my own phone and typed, "I saw your new job posts. Good luck with everything." Short, simple, final. "You sure about that?" Hector asked. "Yeah," I said, looking around my new living room. "Sometimes the best way to help people is to let them help themselves." Catherine raised her pizza slice. "To new beginnings? And to endings," I added. "The ones we choose for ourselves." Later that night, after Catherine and Hector left, I sat on my new porch, Mom's bracelet catching the moonlight. A notification popped up. Robin had posted again. "Someone wise once taught me that actions speak louder than words," she'd written. "Today, I'm letting my actions do the talking." Below was a photo of her donation receipt to a family crisis center, the same one that had helped us after our parents died. I didn't like or comment on the post. Some growth needs to happen without audience or approval. Instead, I went inside and hung that old family photo next to the new one Catherine and Hector had taken. The contrast was striking, not just in time, but in truth. The old photo showed a family bound by obligation. The new one showed a woman surrounded by chosen family, people who'd earned their place in her life. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Catherine. "You good?" I looked around my new home, at the boxes waiting to be unpacked and the walls waiting to be filled with new memories. "Yeah," I replied. "I'm good." And for the first time since this whole ordeal began, it wasn't just words. Standing in my new living room, wearing Mom's bracelet and surrounded by the evidence of my fresh start, I felt something settle into place. Some people say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that trust is thicker than both. And sometimes, building a new family is braver than holding onto a broken one. I turned off my phone, picked up another box, and got back to work. There was unpacking to do, and tomorrow was waiting.
My mother-in-law kicked me out of her house because she disapproved of my decision to give birth at my parents' home. Without allowing me to even change out of my pajamas or put on shoes, she forcibly removed me from the house. With only my phone, I quickly called my mom, who was nearby, and waited for her at a local diner. When my mom and sister heard what had happened, they were furious. They wasted no time taking action, setting off a chain of events that would soon cause serious trouble for both my mother-in-law and my husband. My name is Clara, and I'm 29 years old. I married Mark, who's 31. Just a year ago, Mark's father owns a large company, and Mark is being groomed to take over as CEO. He's gaining experience by working at one of their smaller branches. We met at work, but I didn't fully realize the scale of his family's business empire until just before our wedding. Mark had never mentioned his role as the future CEO, which caught me by surprise. He was confident, well-liked, and once he explained everything, it made sense. Suddenly, I was swept up in the role of a future CEO's wife. After our wedding, Mark moved to the main company office while I stayed at my job. His father seemed supportive, telling me, "I hear you're quite the leader at work, keep it up." But my mother-in-law, Linda, didn't feel the same. Why would a wife neglect her home for a job? She often questioned. She was adamantly opposed to my career. At first, I thought living separately from Mark's parents would minimize any conflict. I believed that the physical distance would allow us to maintain peace. But I was wrong. Soon, Mark's parents suggested we all live together, and that's when the real trouble began. Mark's father, who was always busy, mentioned how helpful it would be for me to manage the household. Mark liked the idea as well. I've always lived here, and I'm worried about Mom. Moving out wouldn't work for me, he explained. I felt cornered and unable to say no. During dinner one evening, when they discussed the arrangement, Linda asked pointedly, "Since we all think it's a good idea, Clara, do you have any objections?" Feeling pressured, I reluctantly agreed to move in. Once we were under the same roof, the challenges started immediately. Linda, already against my job, made life miserable. She insisted I quit my job and take over all household chores. Despite me working full-time, she scrutinized my cleaning efforts, demanding I redo tasks over small faults like a speck of dust or a stray hair. At first, I tried to tolerate her criticisms, thinking that if I was more thorough, it would keep her content, but her demands grew. She started checking impossible-to-reach places, like behind the TV or under heavy furniture, which I found unreasonable. I remember one night clearly, exhausted after a long workday. I was looking forward to a quiet evening, but as soon as I stepped through the door, Linda stormed up to me, broom in hand like a weapon. "Clara, the space behind the fridge is dusty. Move it and clean it now," she barked. I was stunned. "Linda, I just got back from work. Can it wait until the weekend?" I asked, trying to stay calm. Her voice rose. "No, it can't. You are the wife, and this house is your responsibility. I won't tolerate laziness." I had reached my limit. "I can't deep clean every day. I work just like Mark. I'll clean properly on weekends," I replied firmly. Furious, Linda screamed, "How dare you speak back to me like that?" She immediately called Mark, twisting the story to make it seem as if I had yelled at her. With dramatic tears, she exaggerated my calm remarks into a full confrontation. I had hoped Mark would defend me, but instead, he said, "Why did you upset Mom like that? She was just trying to help." His lack of support shattered my hopes for understanding. From that moment, I realized I was alone in this fight. Linda's relentless complaints continued, and Mark always sided with her. To avoid conflict, I began to withdraw, silently enduring the toxic environment. This carried on for nearly a year, until I started feeling unwell. A doctor's visit revealed life-changing news. I was pregnant. Nervously, I shared the news with Mark. "I've been feeling sick, so I went to the doctor. I'm pregnant," I told him. "That's amazing. So, I'm going to be a dad. Do we know if it's a boy or a girl yet?" Mark asked, his excitement palpable. "Not yet. Does it matter?" I asked, sensing deeper expectations. "Of course, it matters. It has to be a boy," he said confidently. Knowing he was an only child, I realized the pressure was already mounting, for us to have a son to carry on the family legacy. "What if it's a girl?" I asked hesitantly, starting to feel a bit anxious. "Don't worry, I'm sure it's a boy," Mark reassured me, though the confidence in his tone made me uneasy. It was as if he couldn't fathom the possibility of it being otherwise. When we later found out we were having a girl, I was thrilled. The thought of having a daughter filled me with joy, but Mark's reaction was far from what I had hoped. "A girl? Are you sure? Maybe they got it wrong. Get it checked again," he said, his voice carrying a hint of disappointment. His reaction left me unsettled, but I was even more anxious about how Linda would take the news. Keeping the pregnancy a secret from them wasn't an option forever. So one evening, Mark finally shared the news with his parents. His father was over the moon. "That's fantastic, Clara, our first grandchild. I'm so happy for you both," he said, genuinely excited. Linda, however, responded with a quiet, disapproving murmur. "A girl, not a boy? Mark needs a son to carry on the family name," she muttered, her disappointment hard to miss. From that moment on, things took a turn for the worse. Linda became even more critical, constantly pressuring me about my responsibilities around the house. She questioned my every move and even started making pointed remarks about whether I planned to quit my job once the baby was born. "Pregnancy isn't an excuse to neglect your duties. Just because you're carrying a child doesn't mean you get to slack off," she said coolly. I was shocked to hear such cold words from another woman, especially one who had gone through pregnancy herself. It was then that I seriously began to wonder if staying in this house was the best decision for my baby. My parents lived about 4 hours away by train. Since my father had passed, my mom and older sister were living together in our family home, offering a refuge far from the suffocating atmosphere of my in-laws' house. I started thinking that going to my parents' home to give birth would be the safest and most supportive option. With a heavy heart, I called my mom. "Mom, it's me, Clara," I said. "What's going on, sweetheart? It's rare for you to call," she replied warmly. "I'm pregnant, and I was wondering if I could come home to give birth." "You're pregnant? Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Congratulations, honey. Of course, you can come home, but have you discussed this with your in-laws yet?" she asked, always mindful of doing things the right way. "Not yet," I admitted. "Well, make sure you talk it over with them first. If they're okay with it, then there's no problem," she advised. Encouraged by her words, I brought it up with Mark that evening. "I'm thinking of going to my parents' house for the birth," I said, trying to gauge his reaction. "Oh, going home for the birth? That's fine, I guess," he responded, surprisingly nonchalant. "My mom's here, so everything should be okay." His quick agreement took me off guard, but I knew the real challenge would be getting Linda's approval. I also decided to ask my father-in-law for his thoughts. "I think it would be best if I went to my parents' place for the delivery. What do you think?" I asked him, hoping for his support. He looked a bit surprised but then smiled warmly. "If that's what you want, Clara, then it's probably the best decision. I won't oppose it." With his blessing, I felt a sense of relief. I prepared to leave without expecting any major issues, but on the morning I was set to depart, I woke up to find my packed luggage missing. My heart sank. Mark and his father had already left for work, leaving me alone with Linda. "Do you know where my luggage is?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Oh, that?" I threw it out. Linda sneered. "I don't need a daughter-in-law who stirs up so much trouble. Don't ever come back," she spat, before shoving me out the door. I barely had time to react. Dressed only in my pajamas and without shoes, I found myself locked out with just my phone in hand. Barefoot and shaken, I called my mom. She was furious and promised to come right away. While waiting, I walked to a nearby diner and spent an hour trying to process what had just happened. My mom arrived soon after, and without hesitation, she drove me straight back to our family home, where my sister was already waiting. I explained everything, the cruel treatment from Linda and Mark's lack of support. My mom and sister exchanged quiet, determined words, leaving me wondering what they were planning. The next morning, still at my family home, I went outside to fetch the newspaper. To my shock, there were Linda and Mark kneeling on the doorstep. "Clara, please, I'm so sorry, it's all my fault," Linda pleaded desperately. "Please don't sever ties with my husband's company." "Clara, I'm sorry too," Mark added quickly. "Can we please continue doing business with my dad's company?" I stood there, completely confused. "What are you talking about?" I asked, still trying to understand what they meant. My mom stepped forward, her voice sharp. "What does resuming business mean?" she asked pointedly. To avoid creating a scene, my mom invited them inside. Once seated, Mark began his plea. "Would you consider continuing business with my dad's company?" he begged, looking at both my mom and sister. I turned to my mom, utterly puzzled. What is this about doing business with his father's company? My mom sighed and explained. "We've been working with one of their subsidiaries for years. It's a major company within their group, second only to their main office." Mark added quickly, "Your mom's company is one of our top clients." I was floored. "That's news to me too," I said, chuckling at the absurdity. But my mom's expression turned steely. "I can't continue doing business with a family that treats my daughter like this. All business dealings stop immediately," she declared firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. Linda, desperate and visibly shaken, cried out, "Please, I beg you, I'll do anything. Could you reconsider?" My sister, wearing a smirk, leaned in and said, "You said anything, right? Then you'll agree to Clara's divorce. And naturally, you'll pay alimony and child support." Her words hung in the air like a final verdict. Just a day earlier, Mark had coldly told me that I deserved everything that was happening. His lack of remorse or compassion had cemented my decision. Silently, I nodded in agreement with my sister and mom. Whatever affection I once held for Mark had long since withered away. Thanks to my sister's bold move, the conversation shifted decisively in our favor. Linda, her desperation palpable, finally asked, "Even if it means agreeing to a divorce, will you resume business?" My mom, calm and confident, picked up her phone. "It seems this woman agrees to my daughter's divorce," she said into the receiver, her voice clear and resolute. A familiar voice echoed from the other end. It was my father-in-law. "Understood, Linda. I'm divorcing you, and Mark, you're fired." The room went silent as the shock of his words settled in. My mom placed the phone down and looked Linda in the eyes. "You two treated my daughter horribly. Actions have consequences." The consequences were swift and irreversible. Linda found herself without a husband, and Mark was now jobless, removed from the family business. My father-in-law's influence stretched wide, ensuring that neither Linda nor Mark would find any help within their usual social or professional circles. Mark tried his hand at finding work in his previous field, but doors were closed to him. He eventually took a customer service job, only to be let go due to a slew of complaints. Now, Linda and Mark share a small, cramped one-bedroom apartment. Their once glamorous lifestyle, funded by my father-in-law's wealth, is a distant memory, and their relationship is strained as they struggle to get by on daily wage jobs. As for me, I safely gave birth to a healthy baby girl at my family home, surrounded by the unwavering love and support of my mom and sister. Life has settled into a peaceful rhythm, and I'm planning to join my mom's company, eager to begin a new chapter in my professional journey. Mark hasn't reached out about our daughter, and frankly, I have no desire for him to be part of her life. I expect him to fulfill his legal obligations regarding child support, but as for the rest, I'm moving forward, living a happy, fulfilling life with my little girl, free from the toxic influences that once weighed me down.
I muttered in disbelief to myself. I can't believe I can't unlock the door. After a grueling day at work, I stood before the entrance, my belongings scattered haphazardly as if they had been discarded like trash. The front door looked different, perhaps replaced, and stubbornly refused to budge no matter how hard I tried. This was the final insult in a long line of hardships I had endured while living with my in-laws. With a newfound determination, I made a resolute decision. I would never set foot in that house again. I began gathering my things, vowing to load them into my car and retreat to the safety of my parents' home. Months went by, and just when I thought I had severed all ties, a message arrived from my estranged in-laws, reawakening a connection I had believed lost forever. "Hello, I'm Hazel. I'm 35, and my husband Jack is 5 years younger." I was completely focused on my career, and Jack happened to be my subordinate. To be honest, marriage wasn't on my mind. I had never really dated, and the idea of settling down felt distant. Yet, here I am, married, all because of his relentless pursuit. He promised I could continue my career after our wedding while he took care of the household chores. It intrigued me, this prospect of marriage. I never opposed having children, although I wasn't particularly keen on marriage. But as I approached 35, I realized that if I wanted to start a family, I needed to make a decision. So I married Jack. For a while, it was just the two of us, and true to his word, he supported my career while managing most of the household responsibilities. But everything changed about 6 months into our marriage when my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. His sudden death left my mother-in-law and my younger sister-in-law, Evelyn, who is 33, in shock. They claimed they couldn't cope on their own. Although Evelyn freelanced and earned a decent income, her focus on fan activities meant her financial stability was fragile. I always believed she should seek a full-time job. When Evelyn approached me, along with my mother-in-law, Jack suggested we all live together. "Hazel, have you considered moving in with my mom and sister? You can keep freelancing, and having them around would ease the household workload." "Jack, I'm fine with continuing my work, but I'm not sure about taking on more household chores. If your mom moves in, shouldn't she be handling most of the household tasks?" "That's a fair point. I'll discuss it with them. Just think about it, please. I want to hear your thoughts before I say anything further." Ultimately, Jack reassured me that his family would take care of all household chores. I considered pushing for a written agreement but kept that thought to myself. After all, they were family, and I wanted to trust they would keep their word. So we moved into my husband's family home. On our first day, I made a point to greet my mother-in-law. "I'm excited about living together. As Jack might have mentioned, I'll continue my work, so I hope you and Evelyn can manage the household chores." Without even looking at me, my mother-in-law replied, "Why did Jack marry someone like her? She works, so all the household chores will fall on me. Isn't that what a wife is supposed to do, handle both work and the home? Her expectation that she would shoulder everything was utterly baffling. She ensured her words cut through the air as she turned to leave. What? This isn't what I expected at all. My mother-in-law's remarks filled me with dread about our future together. As we quietly unpacked our belongings, Evelyn suddenly appeared at the doorway and quipped, "Looks like Jack got stuck with a less than adorable sister-in-law. Poor guy." With that, she swiftly exited. Not again. First my mother-in-law, and now Evelyn. I couldn't understand why they would choose to live with me after speaking about me like that. It would soon become clear that it was all about my financial contribution. On our first day under the same roof, despite their earlier sarcastic remarks, both my mother-in-law and Evelyn ignored me completely. They managed to whip up meals only when Jack was present, yet they showed no interest in helping with cleaning or laundry for me. I tried to confront them about their broken promises several times, but every time I addressed my mother-in-law respectfully as ma'am, she shot me a sharp glare and turned away, making it clear she had no interest in engaging with me. Evelyn didn't mirror her mother's behavior exactly, yet I found myself unable to stand up to either of them. As a result, doing my own laundry and cleaning after long days at work became a tedious routine. I wanted to confide in my husband about what was happening, but I hesitated out of sympathy for him. However, things only escalated when they began to experience financial difficulties. They started pressuring me for more money for leisure activities, but their requests felt evasive, as if they were too timid to confront me directly. Instead, they left notes under my food. Just today, I found a message from my mother-in-law, "We're in a tight spot this month. Could you lend us $300? I considered bringing it up with my husband, but he seemed financially strained himself, often asking, "Could we cut down on expenses this month?" His social obligations and drinking habits were adding up, and I knew he was feeling the pressure. When he was my subordinate, I had always made sure he didn't overspend on unnecessary outings, but after switching departments post-marriage, he struggled to decline invitations, leading to rising costs. I found it hard to discuss their financial demands with him, so I reluctantly acquiesced to their requests, treating it as a loan. This pattern persisted for 2 years. My husband became increasingly comfortable not contributing to household expenses, often urging me to trim costs each month with apparent indifference. I too had grown accustomed to this routine. I felt trapped in a never-ending cycle of schemes. Yet I continued to do one thing, more on that soon. One evening, after returning from work, I was met with a shocking sight, numerous items scattered outside the house. As I drew closer, my heart sank. They were my belongings. What is this? I seethed in anger at the sight of my things treated so carelessly. Determined to express my grievances, I attempted to unlock the front door, only to discover that my key no longer worked. Damn it, they changed the locks while I was gone. I can't take this anymore. I surveyed the disarray of my belongings and contemplated my next move. That's when I noticed another note among the items. It read, "Don't ever return. We don't want to see your face. Consider yourself lucky we didn't toss your stuff out." What terrible in-laws my mother-in-law and Evelyn were. It was clear they were the masterminds behind this. I wondered what Jack had to say about it all. But by that point, it didn't matter to me. Thankfully, I had my car keys with me. I quickly loaded as many of my things as I could into the car and drove straight to my parents' house. I felt a wave of relief knowing my belongings were safe. At least my work wouldn't be affected. The next day, when I arrived at my parents' home, they were visibly shocked but welcomed me back with open arms. It was comforting to be back in my childhood home, a place I hadn't visited much in the past 2 busy years. As I sipped the tea my mother brewed, surrounded by familiar warmth, my father asked, "Why did you bring all your things here? Did you leave their house?" Marriage requires patience, I reflected, feeling the weight of those words. My interactions with my mother-in-law and Evelyn had been sparse over the last 2 years, limited mostly to the occasional reminder notes about money. Jack had gradually become reliant solely on my income, and lately, it felt like he viewed me merely as a convenient ATM. I had endured this situation for far too long. When I confided in my parents, they listened with empathy. "Hazel, you've been patient enough. We won't ask you to endure any longer. Now that they've driven you away, there's no reason to go back." Maybe you should consider sending Jack divorce papers. That's true. He seemed like a decent young man when you married him. But money has a way of changing people. It's a shame, my father added. Both of my parents showed genuine sympathy for me, a kindness I hadn't experienced in the past 2 years. Tears unexpectedly welled in my eyes. Has it been that tough for you? My father asked, his expression filled with concern. No, it's just that I haven't felt this level of sympathy in a long time. It's comforting, just like you said, Dad. I'll send Jack the divorce papers, but I want to observe the situation for a while. I have a feeling something interesting might unfold soon. Indeed, I sensed that something was on the horizon. Surprisingly, that moment arrived about 3 months later. By then, I had moved out of my parents' home and settled into my own apartment. I never imagined I could reclaim control over my earnings and spend as I pleased. I hired a housekeeping service to handle chores, allowing me to enjoy my days off with trips and purchases I had long desired. Each day reminded me of the value of my hard-earned income. I began questioning why I had endured those 2 years. It dawned on me that perhaps I had been influenced or even manipulated by my in-laws. Then, precisely 3 months after my keys had been changed and my belongings discarded, my smartphone buzzed with an unexpected call. Initially, I thought about ignoring it. After dismissing the first call, my phone buzzed again, followed by a third call in quick succession. They must be in trouble, I surmised. I picked up the next call, and just then, the fourth call came through. Hazel, where are you? I went to your parents' house, but they wouldn't tell me. I also tried your workplace, but they wouldn't disclose your whereabouts. It was my mother-in-law, a woman who had ignored me for the past 2 years. Her voice, which I hadn't heard in so long, sounded tentative. Despite answering, I remained silent, relishing the anticipation of what she might say next. Hello, family, are you there? Please come back and restore our lives. We can't even afford to go out and enjoy ourselves. What are we supposed to do now? I thought living without spending money on leisure would suffice, but evidently, that's not the case. Our phone and electricity are about to be cut off. We're at our wits' end. Please come back immediately. Does she not realize she's only thinking of herself? Shouldn't she start with an apology for throwing me out? I thought, feeling resolute about my lack of intention to respond. Hazel, you're not saying anything. Are you listening at all? Doesn't it bother you to hear that we're in such dire straits? Realizing she wasn't going to offer an apology, I decided to end the call and pressed the button to hang up. It was clear she had no concept of remorse. The next day, my phone rang again. Hello, Hazel. Why did you ignore Mom's call yesterday? Even though we're in trouble, you didn't make any effort to help. She couldn't tell if you were even listening. Ignoring calls like that isn't very mature. This time, it was Evelyn calling. Honestly, calls from Evelyn had always been the most bothersome, and I couldn't believe she had the nerve to lecture me about not answering. They had ignored me for 2 years, and suddenly I was the one in the wrong? I planned to endure the call a bit longer, but without an apology. I had no intention of responding. I heard from Mom that we're facing financial troubles at home. Our phone and electricity might get cut off soon. Without AC in this heat, we could suffer from heat stroke. Can you live with that? If our phone goes dead, how will we reach you? So please come back soon and help us pay the overdue bills. Her selfish demands made it all too easy for me to keep ignoring her. Hey, are you listening? You haven't said a word. Oh, are you still upset about what happened 3 months ago? That was obviously just a joke. You're overreacting. As an adult, you should know the difference between a joke and a serious matter. Stop being stubborn and come back home. They threw out my belongings like trash and changed the locks so I couldn't get in. That's a clear message for me not to return, even if they claim it was all a joke or prank. It's hard to believe since Evelyn doesn't seem interested in apologizing either. I decided to end the call. It would be a waste of time to listen to her any longer. The next day, I finally received a call from my husband. Hello, Hazel. I'm sorry. My mother, my sister, and we all realize we've done terrible things. Can you come back? Our household is falling apart. We're out of money. Everyone's on edge, and tensions are high. We sincerely apologize and want you back. Please. At least my husband seemed to feel the need to apologize, but it was too late now. Why had he ignored me for 3 months? If it had only been the first 3 days, I might have considered returning. But 3 months was too long. I had embraced my new life, relishing every moment of my independence. There was no reason for me to return to that family now. I appreciate your apology, but given everything that's happened, I have no intention of coming back. Jack, why were you unreachable for 3 months? How could you do that as a husband? I looked into things, and guess what I found out? You've been cheating, haven't you? That's what the detective agency told me. Thanks for treating me like an ATM for 2 years. I'll be sending divorce papers. Please handle it accordingly. Maybe my husband thought he wouldn't get caught. What a fool! Yet he still had the nerve to say, I want you to come back. I replied, if you reimburse me for all the living expenses for the 3 of us over the past 2 years and repay the money I lent you, maybe I'll consider it. Let's see. That's about $220,000. Can you manage that? I said it mockingly, knowing he couldn't pay. After that, he fell silent and abruptly ended the call, perhaps finally realizing my decision was firm. What happened next? When I sent the divorce papers along with a bill for emotional distress, he promptly returned to sign them. Now all I need to do is file them at the city office, and the divorce will be finalized. As for the compensation, he transferred the money right away. In fact, I included a note with the bill, threatening to expose him to his company if he didn't pay promptly. Fearful of this, he likely sought a loan to cover the compensation. I heard from sources that their family home is now on the market. It seems they're struggling financially and trying to raise funds. However, selling their primary residence hastily means they'll have to rent elsewhere. Considering the cost of rent and utilities, selling their house may not have been the wisest decision. They were likely driven by an immediate need for cash without thinking through the long-term consequences. Whatever happens to that family is no longer my concern. As for me, I'm thoroughly enjoying my single life. I've had my fill of marriage. My mother-in-law never held back her criticisms about my job and educational background. The tension escalated dramatically when she unexpectedly spilled hot tea on me. Though I was fortunate to escape injury, the severity of her actions left me shocked. I couldn't comprehend why she acted so violently, especially considering it was my husband, Charles, who was unemployed, not me. Frustrated by her unreasonable behavior, I declared firmly, enough is enough. If this is how you want it, I have no choice but to leave. To my surprise, my mother-in-law appeared almost pleased with my decision, showing no remorse. Fed up with the toxic environment, I decided to move back to my parents' house. Little did she know, I had been the primary financial supporter of our household, making around $50,000 a month through stock trading after resigning from my previous job. Despite being forced out, I felt confident in my ability to sustain myself. Charles and I had started our relationship in college, both studying economics with dreams of thriving in finance. After we landed jobs at different brokerage firms, he proposed, and I eagerly accepted, envisioning a bright future together. However, our plans shifted when Charles asked me to leave my job and move in with him and his mother after his father passed away. Initially hesitant, I eventually agreed, hoping it wouldn't become a burden. But with everything that had transpired, I was left regretting my decision and resolved never to help my mother-in-law again, even amidst her financial struggles. After losing his father in middle school, Charles became his mother's only support, a responsibility I respected and understood. Thus, when we moved into Charles's family home 3 weeks later, I thought I was doing the right thing. While his mother seemed pleased at first, her demeanor quickly soured as she directed her cold, disapproving gaze at me. Despite feeling unwelcome, I tried to remain optimistic, dismissing her faint mutterings that I couldn't quite hear. Living with her soon proved to be more challenging than I anticipated. One morning, I was jolted awake by her demanding voice at 5 a.m., ordering me to make breakfast. Don't just lay around because you're not working, she scolded sharply. It felt ridiculous, but I didn't argue and set to work, enduring her constant critiques about my speed and efficiency. After what felt like an eternity, I finally served breakfast in just 25 minutes. When I apologized for the delay, she responded with more complaints, this time about the soup being too salty, which I honestly didn't think it was. What are you saying? Are you trying to poison me with such salty meals? she accused. Stunned, I couldn't help but wonder what her motives were. Gathering my courage, I asked, "Why are you so harsh on me?" "What do you mean? I don't think I'm being harsh. Are you trying to make me the bad guy?" she retorted. "That's not what I meant," I replied, overwhelmed by her relentless pressure. "Finish eating and start cleaning. After that, there's laundry, so no time to rest," she commanded. From that point on, every day felt like an unending barrage of criticism and chores that drained me mentally and physically. As I cleaned, she would point out, "You missed the dust in the corner," and while doing laundry, she'd complain, "There's still a stain." About a month into our living arrangement, I reached a breaking point and decided to speak to Charles. "It's about your mother," I began cautiously. "She's been very critical every day, and it's becoming unbearable for me. Could you please ask her to ease up?" To my dismay, Charles offered no response, which frustrated me, but then I noticed his pale complexion, as if he were burdened by something heavy. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" I probed. After a moment of hesitation, Charles finally confessed, "I've been fired from the company." I was stunned, struggling to process his words. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No, it's not," he replied. "Due to an economic downturn, the company had to downsize, and I was laid off." "So you'll be unemployed starting tomorrow?" I asked. "Actually, I can work for another month after receiving my notice, but after that," he paused, then added, "I've been trading stocks using the knowledge I gained at my previous job. It was tough at first, but now I'm earning about $50,000 a month, so we're not struggling financially." I comforted Charles and momentarily forgot about my mother-in-law's torment. The next day, however, I found myself enduring her harsh treatment while Charles adjusted to his new reality. Feeling the need to stay strong and support him, I pressed on. A month passed, and Charles officially became unemployed. Initially, he began searching for a new job, but gradually he spent more time at home, crafting excuses instead. "Shouldn't you start looking for a job more seriously?" I suggested, hoping to encourage Charles to find a new direction. "I'm looking, but it's tough to find a good company that fits me," he replied, his tone lacking urgency or determination. Reluctantly, I continued to shoulder the financial burden for both of us. As time passed, my mother-in-law's hostility intensified, and I felt increasingly drained each day. Initially, I told myself I had to endure it because Charles was out of work, but that justification began to wear thin. My days melted into a haze of monotony. One morning, in a rare moment, Charles left the house early, perhaps finally ready to embark on a serious job hunt. After he departed, I started my usual chores. "Make sure it's clean. Do it right." My mother-in-law nagged from her perch on the living room sofa, sipping tea and hurling sarcastic remarks my way. Fed up, I chose to ignore her. Suddenly, her temper flared. "How dare you ignore me? You're just a daughter-in-law, and you don't even have a job." I continued my cleaning, trying to drown out her venomous words. Her anger escalated as she yelled, "Still ignoring me? Unemployed and uneducated people like you should leave this house." In a fit of rage, she threw her hot tea at me. "It's hot. Please stop," I cried out instinctively, shocked by her sudden aggression. Luckily, the tea wasn't boiling, so I escaped serious burns, but the situation could have turned disastrous. She coldly retorted, "This is what I've been saying, if you're not working, leave this house." Her smirk sent chills down my spine. Exhausted by her unrelenting hostility, I felt I had no choice but to comply with her demand. "Fine, I'll leave." "Good, that makes things easier. Leave quickly," she snapped. I hurriedly packed my belongings, determined to escape the toxic environment. Without hesitation, I headed straight to my parents' home. When I arrived, my parents were taken aback by my sudden visit but welcomed me with open arms. I waited anxiously for a call from Charles, but it never came. No calls, no messages. As the silence stretched on, I felt a growing sense of isolation. I decided not to reach out to Charles until he contacted me first. A month passed since I returned to my parents' home, but still, there was no word from him. My affection for him began to wane, and thoughts of divorce crept into my mind. Then, one early morning, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I checked the monitor, I was shocked to see both Charles and my mother-in-law standing outside. "What now?" I muttered, bewildered by their sudden appearance after all this time. "Yes, what can I do for you?" I asked through the intercom. "I've forgiven you. Now come back home," my mother-in-law shouted, her voice as harsh as ever. "Forgiven me? What are you talking about?" I replied, utterly confused. I hadn't done anything to warrant forgiveness from her. After expressing my bewilderment, I ended the intercom call, frustration boiling inside me at her presumptuousness. But they didn't leave. Instead, they started banging on the front door. "Don't just hang up on me. Let us in," my mother-in-law yelled, her voice echoing with urgency and irritation. Worried their loud commotion might disturb the neighbors, I reluctantly opened the door and invited them inside. After seating them on the living room sofa, I asked why they were here, especially since it had been my mother-in-law who insisted I leave in the first place. The whole situation felt surreal. "You're the one who told me to leave. I can't just go back now," I asserted, frustration evident in my tone. She accused me of being childish and reiterated that she had forgiven me, insisting I return to her home. She even said she would allow an unemployed and uneducated person like me to stay there. "But I'm not the unemployed one. Charles is. If I go back, you'll just take advantage of me again." "What about your son?" I retorted, hoping to make her see reason. Charles seemed taken aback by this revelation, and my mother-in-law looked confused, clearly unaware that Charles hadn't informed her of his job loss. After some hesitation, Charles finally admitted he had been laid off. Apologies and justifications followed, with him trying to rationalize his silence by relying on my income for stability. My mother-in-law, shocked by the news, expressed her anger toward Charles for not actively seeking employment. "Why did you keep quiet about this? What are we going to do now?" she scolded him. Charles assured her that my income would be sufficient for the time being, which only caused her to berate him further for not being proactive in his job search. Frustrated with Charles's excuses and the entire ordeal, I couldn't believe they expected me to just return as if nothing had happened. When my mother-in-law suggested I come back, I firmly refused, recalling all the mistreatment I had endured. Their unexpected visit quickly spiraled into a heated argument, especially when the incident involving the hot tea came to light. Charles was horrified to learn what had happened and confronted his mother. "Why did you do that?" he demanded. She admitted that her actions stemmed from my ignoring her, which ignited a fierce exchange between them. I intervened, suggesting they take their dispute back to their home, highlighting the discomfort their loud arguing caused in someone else's space. My intervention seemed to soften their approach, previously assertive and domineering. They now pleaded with me to return, promising no further trouble. Yet, I saw through their empty assurances. Charles's promise to find a job seemed insincere, and my mother-in-law's vow to stop causing chaos felt equally unreliable. I voiced my skepticism, making it clear I believed their promises were hollow and that they would likely take advantage of me again. The silence that followed confirmed my doubts. Leaving them in the living room, I retreated to my room to collect my thoughts. When I returned 10 minutes later, I found them still seated in silence, their heads bowed in contemplation. Frustrated by their quietude, I broke the stillness. "How long are you planning to stay silent? It doesn't matter to me anymore." Rather than engaging in conversation, I took decisive action. I handed Charles a document I had prepared in advance, a pre-filled divorce form with my signature already on it. Charles looked at the document, utterly bewildered. "Can't you see? It's a divorce form. I'm done with someone who won't find a job and didn't even bother to contact me after I returned to my parents' house," I explained bluntly. "Don't, wait, please, this is too sudden," he protested. His stubbornness only fueled my irritation. He seemed oblivious to how his actions had brought us to this point. Unmoved by his pleas, I stood firm in my decision, ready to move on from the turmoil that had overshadowed my life for too long. I had made up my mind. My decision to divorce Charles was final, and nothing he could say would change that. Still in shock, Charles questioned whether the divorce was too harsh. "I don't think so. It's your fault," I responded, directing the same sternness toward my mother-in-law, who shared the blame for our predicament. Resigned, Charles signed the divorce papers, cautioning me not to regret my decision. However, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. confident that the one who would come to regret this would not be me, but Charles. I'll submit the divorce papers. I don't want any compensation. Just go home, I declared, finalizing my separation from Charles. Although it might have seemed harsh, distancing myself was essential to escape the constant harassment from my mother-in-law and the strain of Charles's unemployment. 3 weeks later, while enjoying a quiet day at my parents' house, I received an unexpected call from my former mother-in-law. She informed me that the electricity and gas had been cut off at her house and insinuated that I might have had something to do with it. I explained that since the divorce, I had stopped covering Charles's and her living expenses. Desperate for help, she asked if I could pay just for that month. I found the request absurd, given that we were no longer related and I didn't live there anymore. I firmly declined, suggesting she ask Charles for assistance since he had promised to find a job. Unable to accept my refusal, she pleaded for help, trying to appeal to our past as ex-in-laws. However, I remained resolute, ending the call and blocking her number to avoid any further entanglements. At last, I had severed ties with both my ex-mother-in-law, who had harassed me relentlessly, and Charles, who had proven himself unreliable. Life at my parents' house gradually became peaceful, a stark contrast to the tumultuous times I had left behind. I began to embrace a newfound sense of tranquility and freedom, relieved to be distanced from such a toxic environment. Several months later, while enjoying a holiday, checking stock charts, and relishing the calm of my new routine, I received an unexpected message from Charles. In it, he apologized for everything, acknowledging his past reliance on me and mentioning that he had recently found employment at a factory. Despite his apology, I felt no desire to re-engage with that part of my life. Charles wrote about his mother's continued harsh behavior and expressed a wish for me to come back. However, as I read his message, I was convinced that reconciliation was off the table. I decided to block Charles's number, choosing to permanently close that door. 8 months post-divorce, life took a positive turn when a friend introduced me to a new man. He was dependable and treated me with the respect I deserved. Despite our age difference, we found a strong connection. While we weren't rushing toward marriage, I cherished the happy moments we shared. He brought a sense of joy and stability that I had long missed, allowing me to focus on the present and leave my troubled past behind. With him, I began to truly rebuild my life. My name is Michelle, and I'm 30 years old. Today was supposed to be just another routine industry event, a room full of familiar faces from the mobile manufacturing world, where I could easily blend into the crowd. But life rarely sticks to the plan. As I navigate the conference hall, looking for a quiet spot to grab a drink, I hear a voice that makes my stomach tighten. It's Jacob. We divorced 2 years ago, yet somehow, he still manages to stir something inside me. There he is, standing with a group, his voice booming just as I remember Jacob, always needing the spotlight, always seeking validation. When our eyes meet briefly, I can feel the weight of his unspoken judgment, his silent critique of the past we shared. He doesn't need to say it aloud. His presence is enough to remind me of everything that fell apart, our marriage and, in his mind, my leadership of the business. But I'm not that woman anymore. I've rebuilt myself since then, and I refuse to let him take up space in my thoughts. His attempt to get under my skin won't work. I turn away, focusing instead on the conversations around me, immersing myself in the company of colleagues who respect what I've accomplished. I can still hear Jacob in the distance, his words laced with bitterness, trying to provoke a reaction, but I won't give him that satisfaction. I take a deep breath, grounding myself in the knowledge that I'm stronger now, that his petty jabs can't shake me. He no longer holds the power he once did. This moment, this event, and my future, none of it belongs to him. As the night goes on, I continue making small talk and engaging with those around me, but part of my mind still lingers on Jacob. His presence is a reminder of what I've been through, but it also reminds me of how far I've come. I've learned to move forward, even when unexpected encounters like this try to pull me back. This is my life, and I'm writing my own story now. Looking back, it's almost hard to believe how full of hope we were in the beginning. Our marriage started with big dreams, dreams of a shared future, of building something great together. I remember the excitement of buying our first home, the late night talks about our ambitions. It seemed like we were aligned. But life has a way of unmasking hidden truths. Infertility was our first real test. At first, we faced it together. But over time, the weight of it became too much. I was consumed by feelings of failure. But instead of supporting me, Jacob began to withdraw. He became distant, and I could sense the cracks forming between us. Late nights turned into excuses. And eventually, the truth emerged. Jacob had been seeing someone else. Someone younger. Andrea. Our confrontation was as messy as our divorce. I was hurt, angry, at him, at myself, at the world for how everything had unraveled. In the aftermath, I threw myself into work. The business became my focus, my way of proving that I could thrive on my own. With my father's belief in me, I took on more responsibilities and found my footing in leadership. It wasn't easy, but I've grown stronger, and now, I'm determined to keep moving forward, with or without Jacob in my rearview. Despite everything, the past still lingers, but I've learned to live with it. My time with Jacob, though painful, taught me lessons about strength and resilience that I didn't know I was capable of. It's a bittersweet realization, but it's the reality I've come to accept. I tried to ignore the signs, but Jacob's behavior grew more suspicious with time. He became distant, his excuses for late nights more frequent. Then, one day, I overheard a phone call that confirmed what I had been dreading. His voice, soft and affectionate, sounded nothing like the man he had become with me. I knew then that my worst fears had come to life. As hard as it was, I decided to gather evidence. It didn't take long. Andrea's name was all over his phone. Their messages and calls far more intimate than I could bear. When I confronted him, there were no lies, no justifications. His cold, emotionless response made me realize the man I had married was gone. The divorce was inevitable. But it wasn't easy. It was a long, painful process, one neither of us could walk away from unscathed. The emotional toll was heavy, each of us fighting to salvage whatever dignity we had left. But when it was over, I walked away with my head held high, determined that his betrayal wouldn't define me. Through it all, my family stood by me, especially my father. He was my constant, his faith in me a source of strength when I had none left. The business became my escape. A place where I could focus and leave the pain behind. Jacob may have broken my heart, but he didn't break my spirit. I emerged from the divorce stronger, more determined to shape my own future. I realized my worth wasn't dependent on anyone else, and that I was capable of more than I had ever believed. After the divorce, I threw myself into my work. The family business became my sanctuary, and I embraced every challenge it brought. With my father's guidance, we navigated the complexities of the industry, and his support gave me the confidence I needed. Slowly, life began to feel normal again. The pain of Jacob's betrayal dulled, and I stopped measuring my worth through his eyes. Under my leadership, the company flourished, and I rediscovered my sense of accomplishment. I hadn't felt such lightness in a long time. Then, amidst the turmoil, I met someone who reignited the spark in my life. He worked as my assistant in the family business, and it was his kindness and patience that set him apart. I was cautious at first, hesitant to open up again after being hurt, but he was persistent, gently breaking down the walls I had built around my heart. Slowly, I began to trust once more. We started spending time together outside of work, and before long, I realized I was smiling more often. He reminded me what it felt like to be truly seen, cared for without any ulterior motives. My family noticed the change and supported me, happy to see me finding joy after all I had endured. Meanwhile, Jacob's life was spiraling. I heard bits and pieces from mutual acquaintances, financial troubles, tension with Andrea, but I kept my distance. I refused to be dragged back into his chaos. My focus was on creating a new life, one where I could thrive independently. Each day I grew more confident in my choices. The business flourished, and my personal life blossomed too. I had faced adversity, and now I was stronger, embracing the future with open arms. With every day that passed, my new relationship felt less like a gamble and more like a fresh start. I was no longer stuck in the past. Instead, I was focused on the happiness and excitement of what lay ahead. My assistant became more than just a colleague, he was my partner. In every sense of the word, we explored new places together, shared laughter, and created memories that made the darkness of the past seem distant. He brought warmth back into my life, filling the void that Jacob had left behind. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely happy. My family welcomed him with open arms, relieved to see me smiling again. My father, especially, saw how well we complemented each other, both professionally and personally. It was a testament to the strength I had regained, allowing myself to love again without fear. As Jacob's life unraveled further, whispers of his struggles grew louder: financial issues, problems with Andrea. His actions had finally caught up with him, but I refused to dwell on his troubles. My focus was on my own happiness. My partner and I worked hard, building the business while nurturing our relationship. Each challenge brought us closer together, and I felt empowered, unburdened by the shadows of the past. I was writing a new chapter in my life, one filled with possibility. One evening, at a company event, I felt a deep sense of pride. Our business was thriving, and I was there to strengthen our network. My partner stood by my side as we mingled with colleagues. For once, my past felt firmly behind me. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jacob, with Andrea beside him. The sight was unsettling, but I steeled myself, determined not to let him shake me. He looked tired, worn down, and Andrea seemed equally uneasy. Eventually, they approached, and the tension was palpable. Jacob tried to hide his desperation behind a weak smile, but his intentions were obvious. His financial problems had reached a breaking point, and he was hoping for a lifeline. He spoke of his current struggles, subtly hinting at needing help. Andrea's discomfort was evident, and their strained relationship was plain to see. They wanted my help, but I had no intention of getting involved. I kept my composure, listening politely but keeping a firm distance. When Jacob pressed further, I calmly redirected the conversation back to the event, making it clear I wouldn't be dragged into his chaos. The calm I felt was liberating. I no longer owed Jacob anything. His problems were not mine to fix. With my partner by my side, offering silent support, we moved on, leaving Jacob and Andrea behind, where they belonged. I had a future to build, and nothing was going to derail my progress. After that night, Jacob tried to contact me several times, but I stood firm in my decision to cut ties. He requested meetings, sent messages, and appealed to our past, but I responded with silence. I had learned my lesson. Blocking him out was difficult, but it was necessary. I needed to prioritize my well-being and the life I was building with my partner. That meant leaving behind the part of my life that no longer served me. As I reflected on my journey, I realized how much I had grown. The betrayal I had experienced was painful, but it had also sparked a transformation. I had rediscovered my inner strength, reclaimed my self-worth, and learned to trust again. Surrounding myself with people who truly cared had made all the difference. My partner's quiet presence had been a constant source of comfort, and together, we were building a future full of promise, one free from the shadows of the past. Meanwhile, Jacob's world continued to fall apart. From what I gathered, his financial troubles had worsened, and his marriage to Andrea was barely holding on. The consequences of his choices were catching up to him, and he had no one to blame but himself. It was a powerful reminder to me about the importance of staying true to oneself. Jacob had let pride and deceit guide his decisions, and now he was paying the price. As for me, I had moved on, leaving the past behind and embracing the opportunities that lay ahead. Every day brought new challenges and joys, and I welcomed them with open arms. I had finally closed the chapter on Jacob and everything he represented, ready to write the next part of my story on my own terms. Looking back on my journey, I can see how much I've grown since those turbulent days with Jacob. His betrayal was devastating, but it also led me to discover a strength I didn't know I had. It's a bittersweet realization, but that journey taught me invaluable lessons about resilience and self-respect. Since our paths diverged, I've built a life I'm genuinely proud of. The family business is thriving, and I've earned the respect of my colleagues in the industry. More importantly, I've found love again, and I'm surrounded by people who truly care about me. Every day, I focus on the endless possibilities ahead, knowing that I've moved beyond the shadows of my past. My partner and I are excitedly planning our future together, looking forward to new adventures and moments of joy. I feel liberated, no longer weighed down by the burdens of past betrayals. As for Jacob, his future remains uncertain. His life, shaped by pride and deceit, is now defined by the consequences of his actions. While I bear no ill will toward him, I've learned the importance of keeping my distance. His journey is his own to navigate, and I wish him the best as he faces his challenges. In closing this chapter, I find a sense of peace. The lessons I've learned about trust, resilience, and the power of self-love have been invaluable. The cost of pride is high, but in the end, I've emerged stronger and more determined. With a renewed sense of purpose, I look forward to the bright future ahead, knowing that my story is mine to write, and this time, I'm writing it on my own terms. After 7 years of marriage, I found myself without a child, and the weight of my mother-in-law's harsh words was unbearable. One day, in a fit of anger, Deborah shoved me and shouted, "You're not a real woman. You can't even give birth." Her accusations cut deep as she labeled me a failure and ordered me to leave the room and sleep on the balcony. The shock of her words left me stunned, but what shattered my heart most was the sight of my husband, Alex, standing silently beside her, offering his support instead of defending me. I obeyed her command, but I knew this situation could not continue. My name is Grace, and I want to share my story, a tale of love, conflict, and the fight for my independence. 7 years ago, I believed I had everything figured out. At 30, I was a dedicated marketing executive, deeply passionate about my career. I married Alex, 34, and together, we dreamed of building a life filled with love and family. Our journey began at a corporate event where Alex's charm and ambition captivated me. Our wedding felt like the beginning of a fairy tale, and we eagerly anticipated starting a family. However, we decided to enjoy our freedom for a few years before taking that step. Looking back, that choice, seemingly innocent at the time, spiraled into years of unrelenting pressure and disappointment. Everything changed when Alex's father, George, suffered a stroke. The family insisted we move into their home in Chicago to help care for him. I didn't want to leave our cozy apartment filled with memories, but family obligations prevailed, and we relocated to his parents' house, believing it would be temporary. Adjusting to life with Alex's family was a challenge. The house buzzed with tension and unspoken expectations, and Deborah, a traditional homemaker, quickly made it clear that I was not meeting her standards. From the moment I stepped into her home, I felt her scrutiny. To her, a woman's worth was measured by her ability to bear children, and since Alex and I had not yet started a family, I became her target. Initially, her criticisms were subtle. "You should really learn to cook better," she would say, dismissing my attempts in the kitchen. "Alex works hard. A wife should support him more." It stung, but I tried to brush it off, focusing on my career and working late hours to prove my worth beyond her traditional expectations. As months turned into years, the criticisms intensified. One evening after a grueling day at work, I came home to find Deborah waiting for me. "You know, Grace, a real woman knows how to take care of her family. I just don't see how you fit into that picture," she sneered, her disdain palpable. I felt crushed. Despite my accomplishments, I was made to feel inadequate. At first, Alex defended me. "Mom, Grace works hard. We're trying to have a baby. These things take time," he would say. But as the pressure mounted, I sensed him succumbing to his mother's expectations, leaving me feeling utterly alone. The breaking point came when Alex's sister, Deanna, returned home unexpectedly, pregnant and recently divorced. Deborah was thrilled, finally, a grandchild. When she announced that Deanna would need my room, I was taken aback. "Grace, you'll have to move to the balcony," Deborah ordered, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. In that moment, the gravity of her words crushed me. "You are not a real woman. You are a failure. You cannot give birth," she shouted, her accusations echoing in my ears. My heart broke at the realization that this woman, who was supposed to be family, could wield such hurtful words. "Mom, that's not fair," Alex protested weakly, but I stood there, suffocated by Deborah's contempt. "You're not a real woman if you can't make sacrifices for family," she spat, her insults cutting deeper than I thought possible. "Alex, please," I begged, desperately hoping he would stand by me, but he remained silent, caught between his loyalty to his mother and his love for me. In that moment, rage surged within me. How could he let her speak to me like that? Enough was enough. I moved to the balcony, but I also resolved to take action. I could no longer support a family that didn't appreciate me. So I withdrew my financial contributions, no more groceries, no more bills. For the first time in ages, I felt empowered. But it was a bittersweet victory. I knew their dependence on my income would hurt them, but I needed to reclaim my life. The tension in the house escalated. Deborah and Alex's frustration grew as they faced financial strain. Their arguments echoed through the walls, blame shifting between them, a reminder of how precarious our situation had become. A month later, both Alex and Deborah approached me with apologies, realizing how much they relied on me, not just financially but for the household's stability. Yet my heart had hardened. Their remorse felt insincere, a thinly veiled attempt to manipulate me back into compliance. I had made my decision. The love and respect I once envisioned for my life had withered away. I planned to file for divorce, packed my belongings, and began plotting my escape to New York. I was ready to leave behind a life that felt like a cage and reclaim my independence. Moving to New York was both terrifying and liberating. As I settled into a cozy, albeit small, apartment in a lively neighborhood, I felt a rush of excitement mixed with anxiety. The city pulsed with energy, cars honking, people bustling, so different from the suffocating silence of Alex's family home. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I quickly immersed myself in my new job at a marketing firm, surrounded by ambitious colleagues who reignited my passion. I embraced challenging projects, each success a testament to my resilience and independence. However, even amid my newfound freedom, shadows of the past lingered. I missed the family I had longed for, the love I once believed I shared with Alex. Sleepless nights found me wrestling with doubt, questioning whether I had made the right choice. The scars from my time with Deborah remained, haunting me as I navigated this new chapter. The struggle was far from over, but for the first time, I felt like I was finally on the path to reclaiming the life I deserved. One evening, while I was engrossed in work, my phone buzzed with a message from Alex. "Can we talk? I miss you." A wave of emotions crashed over me. My heart sank at the sight of his name. It had been so long since I'd heard from him, and now I was torn between anger and a deep-seated longing. Part of me ached to respond, to hear his side of the story, while another part urged me to keep pushing forward, to resist the pull of the past. After wrestling with my feelings, I reluctantly agreed to meet him at a coffee shop in my neighborhood. As I stepped inside, I spotted him in a corner, his demeanor a mix of relief and anxiety. When our eyes met, his face brightened, but the tension in the air was palpable. "Grace," he said, rising to greet me as I approached, "I'm really glad you came." His voice carried a sincerity that was both comforting and uncertain. "Hi, Alex," I replied, mustering a smile that felt fragile. We settled into our seats, the space between us charged with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. "I've missed you," he finally said, his gaze dropping to the table. "Things have been really hard at home. Mom keeps asking about you." My stomach twisted at his words. "And what about you? How are you handling it?" "Honestly, it's tough. She keeps trying to convince me to get you to come back. She thinks you're the problem," he admitted, his voice wavering. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. "Me? The problem? Alex, you saw how she treated me. I didn't leave for no reason." "I know, but it's complicated. She's my mom. I can't just ignore her," he said defensively. As we talked, it struck me that while Alex hadn't changed, I had. It was time for me to let go and move forward. "Alex, I'm happy now. I don't want to go back to that toxic environment." His expression fell, and I saw the hurt in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you, Grace. I wish things could be different. It's not just about us anymore. I need to find my own path," I replied, tears welling up. "I can't keep sacrificing my happiness for your family's approval." After that meeting, I wandered through the city, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. I had finally asserted my independence, yet the pain of leaving Alex behind lingered. The city buzzed with life, a stark contrast to the suffocating silence of his family's home. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Days turned into weeks, and I threw myself into my work. I made new friends who inspired me and encouraged my ambitions. I enrolled in classes to expand my skills, pushing myself further than I ever thought possible. Yet, the pressure from Alex's family never fully dissipated. Deborah called occasionally, attempting to guilt-trip me. "You were part of this family, Grace. You can't just abandon us," she would say, her tone harsh and accusatory. Each call left me drained, but I held firm. "I'm not abandoning anyone, Deborah. I'm choosing to live for myself now." I was determined to protect my peace. One day, I received a frantic call from Deanna. "Grace, I really need to talk to you." "It's about Mom," she said, her voice trembling. Desperation echoed in her tone. We met at a cafe near my apartment. She looked exhausted, her eyes red and puffy. "Mom hasn't stopped pressuring me since you left," she confessed. "She keeps saying I'm the reason you left and that I need to convince you to come back." My heart sank as I listened. "Deanna, you can't take that on. It's not your responsibility. You have your own life to live and a baby on the way. You don't need to bear the burden of our family's dysfunction." Tears welled in her eyes, but she won't stop. "I feel like I'm constantly failing her, and now I'm scared I'll fail my own child too." I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "You're not failing anyone. You have to prioritize yourself and your baby. Set boundaries with her. Don't let her guilt you into sacrificing your happiness." Deanna nodded, but I could see the fear lingering in her eyes. I knew it wouldn't be easy for her to stand up to Deborah, but I hoped my words would help her find the courage to protect herself. A few days later, Alex reached out, asking if we could meet. I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to reopen old wounds, but I agreed. When we met at a park, I was struck by how tired he looked, as if he were carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Grace, I've been thinking a lot about everything," he began. "I realize how much I let my family come between us. I should have stood up for you, but I didn't, and I'm so sorry." His apology stirred something within me, but I knew it wasn't enough. "Alex, I appreciate your words, but it's too late. I filed for divorce. I need to move forward, and that means leaving all of this behind." He looked devastated but nodded slowly. "I understand. I just wish I had done things differently." "I wish things had been different too, but we can't change the past. I have to do what's right for me now," I said firmly. As I walked away from that conversation, I felt a strange sense of closure. I had made my choice, and it was the right one for me. It was time to let go and focus on building the life I deserved. In the weeks that followed, I found myself growing more confident and at peace. I immersed myself in my work and even took up painting again. Each brushstroke felt like a reclamation of my identity, a way to express all the emotions I had kept locked away for so long. Then one evening, Deanna called again, but this time her voice was stronger. "Grace, I finally told Mom I need space. It wasn't easy, but I did it. I'm trying to set those boundaries you talked about." I felt a surge of pride. "That's incredible, Deanna. I'm so proud of you. It's not easy, but it's a step in the right direction." As we ended the call, a sense of hope washed over me. Maybe my journey wasn't just about finding my own freedom, but also about helping Deanna find hers. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. I was finally learning to let go of the past and embrace the future I had always wanted. After filing for divorce, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions: relief, sadness, and fear. It was a tough decision, but I knew it was the right one. I needed to liberate myself from the toxic environment and finally live for me. I had spent too long trying to fit into a life that wasn't mine, and now it was time to move forward, leaving everything behind. The divorce process was exhausting. Alex attempted to persuade me to reconsider, promising he would stand up to his mother and that we could start fresh. But I understood that going back would only trap me again. I told him firmly, "Alex, I'm done. This isn't just about your mother. It's about me reclaiming my life, one where I'm not constantly judged or undervalued." He looked devastated, but he understood I meant it. When the papers were signed, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was officially free from a marriage that had drained me emotionally. This wasn't just about ending things with Alex. It was about reclaiming my identity and my voice. Predictably, Deborah didn't take the news well. She called me, furious, accusing me of tearing the family apart. "How could you do this to us? To Alex? You're selfish," she shouted, her voice dripping with bitterness. But this time, her words didn't affect me. "Deborah, I'm not responsible for your happiness or your family's. I need to take care of myself now, I replied calmly, feeling a strength I hadn't felt before. I hung up, knowing it was the last time I would allow her to manipulate me. I made the difficult decision to cut ties with everyone, including Deanna. As much as I cared about her, I realized I needed to distance myself completely to heal. I sent her a heartfelt message explaining that I needed space to move on. It hurt to let go, but I knew it was necessary. In the months that followed, I threw myself into building my new life. I focused on my career, taking on challenging projects that reignited my passion for marketing. I moved into a beautiful new apartment overlooking Central Park, a place that truly felt like mine. I began exploring the city, joined art classes, and made new friends who valued and respected me for who I was. It wasn't always easy. There were days when I felt lonely and questioned if I had made the right choices. But those moments were fleeting. Each time, I reminded myself of the strength it took to walk away from a life that suffocated me. One day, while walking through Central Park, I realized just how far I had come. I had let go of the pain and resentment that had weighed me down for so long. I was no longer the woman who felt trapped and powerless. I was independent, confident, and finally at peace. Looking back, I see that my journey wasn't just about leaving a toxic marriage or an overbearing family. It was about finding myself again, my voice, my strength, my worth. I had to release everything that held me back to embrace the future I deserved. Now, I wake up every day excited about what lies ahead. I've started mentoring young women in my industry, sharing my experiences and helping them navigate their paths. It's incredibly fulfilling to know that I can use my story to inspire others to stand up for themselves and never settle for less than they deserve. I've learned that true independence isn't just about being alone. It's about living authentically, making choices that align with who you are, and refusing to let anyone diminish your light. I'm proud of the woman I've become, and I'm excited for the future I'm building, one that's truly my own. Hello everyone, I'm Linda, and I've just completed all my general education courses. Next year, I'll be majoring in economics, diving into specialized subjects soon. While I'm aware the competitive nature of my field may kick in, I'm also contemplating graduate school. Thankfully, my parents are supportive of whichever path I choose, and I genuinely appreciate that. We're fortunate financially, thanks to my dad's hard work in building a successful business from the ground up. Although I don't want to boast, I'm grateful that we've never struggled financially, and once I secure a job, I'm determined to repay my parents for their kindness. However, despite how great my life may seem, I face my own challenges, primarily revolving around my brother and his wife. William is 10 years older than me, and to be honest, we've never really clicked. Friends often say that siblings of different genders with a significant age gap don't communicate much. But William and I have always talked. Yet, we're not particularly close. Hey, Kane, could you grab some comics for me? And don't forget a notebook for studying. Use your own allowance, of course. Oh, and pick up a drink while you're at it. For years, I've been running errands like this. My parents would intervene when they were home, but since they both work, I often comply out of fear. This dynamic hasn't changed now that I'm an adult. If anything, it feels worse. Everything shifted last year when William married Jessica, who was the same age as him. She's beautiful, but rather cold. I took an instant dislike to her, and it turns out my instincts were spot on. You have a sister whose family is well off. I wonder if Caitlin could chip in $10,000 as a wedding gift, she suggested once. Jessica has constantly pressured me, even though I'm still in school. Thankfully, my parents stepped in. Kate is a student living at home. Her gift can match ours. Sure, we'll add a little extra. But my brother and Jessica were still unhappy. That's not fair. You're an adult. You need to contribute, Jessica insisted. Exactly. We'll be family for a long time, so you should step up. In the end, I gave them the money my parents had planned for me just to avoid any drama. Honestly, both William and Jessica are incredibly greedy. I hoped to keep my distance, but they continue to invade our home, despite my wishes, and never miss a chance to jab at me for living at home while going to college. Still living at home? You don't plan to be a burden forever, do you? I don't want a sister who's useless. Seriously, even if your college is nearby. It's so uncool. Why not move out? You'd save us on utilities and groceries. Plus, there'd be more inheritance for us. This from someone who commuted from home to college and even had to repeat 2 years. Jessica's comments were just as insensitive. While my parents are still healthy and working, she's already talking about inheritance. It's just thoughtless. I've been biting my tongue because I know anything I say will only provoke them further. Things took a turn for the worse when they started bringing their belongings to our home. Despite living only 30 minutes away in a spacious apartment, clothes and knickknacks kept appearing. "William, why are you bringing this stuff here? You have your own home," I exclaimed. My mom finally intervened. "This stuff is in the way." My brother shrugged it off. "This is my home too. What's the big deal? Besides, Kane has more stuff here." "Kane lives here." "Of course," she replied. "Well, I'm also a child of this house. Don't play favorites. There's nothing wrong with keeping our stuff here. Jessica is part of my family, so she belongs here too." "Exactly. Future in-laws," they chimed in. "William will eventually inherit everything. We might as well start now, right?" They kept dismissing my parents' concerns. Then, one morning, I woke up to heavy footsteps. The house was bustling with burly men following my brother and Jessica as they began moving things around. It looked like they had hired them. "What should we do with this one?" one of the men asked. "Just leave that, but take that one away," William instructed. "Got it." The men proceeded to move drawers belonging to my parents and me, even taking my college textbooks and daily essentials. "Hey, what are you doing? Stop this right now," I shouted. "Well, we were hired by them," one of the men replied, gesturing towards William and Jessica. No matter what I said, they didn't listen, even when I complained directly. They just looked to my brother and Jessica, clearly confused. Apparently, they were being paid a handsome sum for this job. Before I knew it, all my vital belongings were out of the house, loaded into a truck parked outside. "Oh, Kane, don't worry about your money. We'll make good use of it. And please take those 2 old folks with you. You can keep your wallet. We're not heartless. We've rented a temporary apartment for you to stay with Mom and Dad. 2 weeks' rent is covered. You'll be going there for now. We've arranged for your stuff to be delivered," William announced casually. "What? You can't do this," I protested. But before I could voice another complaint, they shoved me and my parents into the yard. I stood there, stunned, staring at the house I had called home just moments before. Snapping back to reality, I realized I couldn't just stand there, paralyzed. I'm an adult now, not a kid needing my parents' protection. I'll have to put college on hold for a bit and find a part-time job to get by. I wonder where my bank book and seal ended up. It would be nice if my brother had set aside some basic funds for me, but I can't afford to worry about that now. The only option is to head to the temporary apartment they mentioned. "It's okay, Dad, Mom. I'm not a kid anymore," I reassured them, glancing back at my parents. They looked even more stunned than I felt, clearly feeling betrayed by my brother. I realized it was up to me to lift their spirits. To my surprise, my expectations were shattered in the best possible way. When I turned around, I saw both of them smiling. "Well, that went better than I expected," Dad said with a grin. "Faster than I thought it would," Mom added. "Wait, what's happening?" I asked, confusion creeping in. It turned out they had been suspicious of my siblings' scheme all along. From the moment William and Jessica first moved their things in, they had been anticipating a day like this. "Listen, Kane, people like that won't stop no matter what you say. If anything, they'll dig their heels in deeper when faced with reason," Dad explained. "Exactly. You can't confront people like William directly. Instead, let them think they've succeeded in their little game. That's when they let their guard down. And you can make your move," Mom chimed in. "So, this was all part of your plan?" I asked, incredulous. Their smiles widened at my question. "Look, your dad didn't build a company from scratch for nothing. It's time to teach you some skills that have supported your dad, Kane. I'll show you what it really means to handle people," Mom explained. They suggested we head to the weekly apartment for now. I thought we were going straight home to confront my siblings, but apparently not. Following Dad's lead, I walked as if I were deeply disheartened. "I feel like we're being followed," I whispered. Don't worry, Kane. Just act like you don't notice. People like William and Jessica thrive on tormenting their prey. They'll probably report back to someone that we look downcast. Just keep acting defeated, Mom advised. Taking their advice to heart, I made my way to the apartment. Once inside, they announced with enthusiasm, "Okay, most of the plan is a success. Now it's time to counterattack William and his crew." On Mom's cue, Dad made a call. "Proceed as planned," he instructed. Speaking to a moving company, it seemed one of Dad's trusted employees was ready to oversee the operation. Movers started streaming into our home. "Boss, everything is going as planned. Your son and daughter-in-law seem to be in shock," reported one of the movers. "I expected nothing less. Carry on," Dad replied over the phone, providing live commentary. Apparently, the movers had been prepped by Dad on which items to take. The sound of safes and valuables being relocated filled the air. "What the heck? You can't just burst into someone's house like this. What's the big idea?" William shouted. Confusion etched on his face. "Really? You want me to call the police?" Jessica threatened. "No, we're just here on the homeowner's request. Hey, could you move, please? You're in our way." "Wait a minute. That's my safe with my bank book in it. Where are you taking that?" William demanded. "Your father requested this. We're moving it to the new house." "What's going on?" Jessica asked, bewildered. "I was just about to check the combination," William protested. "It's your father's wish. And by the way, William, it's telling that you, his own son, don't even know the safe combination. Clearly, you're not trusted," one of the movers pointed out. "Shut up. You're just an employee." "Wait, that jewelry belongs to my mother-in-law. What are you doing with it?" William yelled. "This is under the vice president's order. We're taking this to the new home. If you damage it, you'll be billed for it." "What? Stop. I can't afford that." "Then please don't get in the way." About an hour later, the commotion subsided, and one of the employees reported, "Mr. President, Vice President, all arrangements are complete. Sorry to bother you on your day off." "It's no trouble at all, thank you," Dad replied. He hung up and turned to me. "Let's go to our real home." He led me to a mansion that was just as lavish as our old home, actually even grander. "What is this place?" I asked, astonished. "Our new home." "Yes, the security is even tighter. William won't be able to get in so easily." "What about the old house?" "I quietly sold it. A broker will step in tomorrow." "And what about William and Jessica?" "Don't know, don't care. They might get kicked out, but it was never their home to begin with. They'll be fine." "Exactly. Now we have a busy day ahead with the move. We need to get everything done by tonight," Mom encouraged. We all began to work, taking stock of the new house's layout and organizing our rooms and living spaces. By nightfall, we had finished everything. I was too exhausted to think about William and drifted into a deep sleep. The next morning, after a refreshing rest, my parents explained everything. Apparently, they had foreseen this day ever since William got married. William is just like that, and I suspected Jessica would be too, so I had a backup plan all along. Originally, I planned to move into this house anyway. It's a secret even from William, allowing us to live here in peace. What about my brother? I can't imagine they'd keep quiet after all this. You're right. It seems William and the gang are quite disgruntled, but we have a top-notch lawyer at our company. It's clear who's in the wrong here, don't you think? Absolutely. As it turns out, Dad's legal consultant reached out to my brother. If they attempted to harm us further, they'd be sued. Upon hearing this, my brother gave up on trying to take over our old home. They were left high and dry. But that wasn't all. My brother couldn't land a job after college and had been working at our dad's company out of pity. "There's no way we're keeping someone like you on staff. You're not my son anymore. You're fired," Dad declared. This incident spurred my brother, who had zero skills to begin with, to struggle even more in his job search. Jessica, who was all about the money, was absolutely furious. "William, you're useless without money. I want a divorce," she shouted. And just like that, they were divorced. But Jessica wasn't going to escape unscathed either. Dad spoke to Jessica's employer about the whole ordeal. They couldn't keep her on, especially if it meant risking their relationship with an important client. They fired Jessica on the condition that they would continue their business relationship with Dad's company as before. I can't believe this is happening to me. I was supposed to be the boss's wife, living the high life. All those jewels and that mansion, they were supposed to be mine, Jessica wailed. But it was too late. She was also left penniless. Her family knew the situation but had no intention of helping her. Instead, they ostracized her. Hearing all this made me realize that despite thinking I was grown up, I had been naive. I still had much to learn from my parents. I needed to strive to ensure I never became like my brother or Jessica. Luckily, I still had time before I graduated from college.